Really nice scope, under 2,500 bucks. This might be worth checking out. I always love running scopes in the precision rimfire world because they get a workout. Now, yeah, I realize they don't get recoil, but honestly, most companies are doing a lot of lab testing and things like that to make sure that durability and recoil are there. I'm more concerned about tracking and return to zero and consistency. And the one nice thing with rimfire, especially as we're shooting out to 300-400 yards, you're doing a lot of dialing. And that's an area where some scopes can start to have deviations to where you think that you're actually, dialing 10 mils, but it's actually, 10 point whatever. And that is something that is really, really important. Now, obviously, glass quality, reticle features, all that stuff is important too, and we're going to get into all of that. Thanks, you guys, for watching. My name's Dave. I really do appreciate it. And I do have to thank the sponsor of this video, Global Ordnance, that provides all of our ammo, and we have more information about them in the description below. But back to the scope. This is the Zeiss S3 4 to 25. Now, I know you might be thinking, didn't you mean 5 to 25? Because there's a lot of 5 to 25 scopes out there, but no, this one's actually a 4 to 25. So it's the opposite of the Spinal Tap. This one goes one lower. So that's kind of cool, which is sometimes I will be upfront too. Sometimes when I was shooting this on centerfire, it is kind of nice to have a little bit wider field of view. So that 4 to 25, I think, is a really nice benefit. Now, overall, I really enjoyed this scope. There was only a couple things that I found that I would like to change, and I'll talk about those here in a little bit. But let's just start up close and let's go through some of the basic specs. If you want to see the full specs, you can check that out online. Those of you guys that know me know that I'm not a big spec reader, but nonetheless, some of the specs that I feel that you guys would probably find important. 50mm objective lens, 34mm maid tube. It is available in either MOA or mil version. My particular version is the mil version, which uses 0.1 adjustments. And speaking of the turrets, I'm gonna go ahead and get close. Ooh. Yeah. They are crisp. They feel really good. I like them a lot. It has a solid zero stop. And you can set that zero stop wherever you want, which is kind of cool too. And then what I also like is, speaking of the turrets, if we're going to talk about the Windage turret, is, let's get this so you guys can see it. The zero marker on the Windage turret is up a little bit higher. So as you're running your bolt knob or anything like that, your eye can see that, which is, I think, a really nice touch. Now, what's really cool is that it does have left and right marked, but the knob is locked until we actually pull it out. Once we pull it out, then we can make our adjustments, and then we can put it back in so it doesn't get bumped in a bag or moving from stage to stage or whatever. But here's the cool thing that I really liked about the Windage knob in particular, that I don't know if there's other scopes that have this feature, but this is the first scope that I've had with this feature, is that as I'm dialing, I get a stop, and it's just shy of 5 mils. And just, again, right about, looks about just shy of 5 mils either way. And then I get that limit, so I can't over rotate it and now go into what would be the, the L marked, windage area. So I know that I'm not going to get confused. So I can go back to zero, and then I can go ahead and lock the knob back in. And I know if I dial, I'm not going to over dial and get into that mismarked area. So when I think I would be into the left correction, I'm actually into the right or whatever. So it's almost kind of like a Windage zero stop in a way. And like I said, this is the first scope that I've had that I have had that feature, and I like it. And again, the knobs, they feel really good. They have a nice crisp detent. So everything is just as I would want with the turrets. No complaints. They're big, they're beefy. They have these nice serrations and this surface area to grab, so I really, really like them. Now, speaking of the turrets and getting everything set up, it is a Torx T8 bit to take off the cap. So if when you want to reset your zero, you basically just loosen this and then you would turn this to the appropriate area. So after your zero. Now, as far as the zero stop, it is a very proven design of a zero stop, and it does have these marks here where you need to basically tighten the set screws. Now, once you have your zero set, you loosen the set screw, you move this zero stop device, and you can set it wherever you want. And it actually has a pin on the base. So that pin is here, and then the zero stop has a pin on this collar. So basically, once that pin hits that, you get that hard zero stop, and then you would put your cap on wherever you want, make sure it is reset to zero, and then you would tighten up all of those set screws, you know, completing your setup. I love those. The other side of the controls, we do have the battery compartment for the illumination. And again, what's cool is that I can take the battery knob off without any tools, which is absolutely awesome. I hate having to have tools. Now here is the parallax adjustment, and here's my first quirk. I wish it had distance markings on it. Now I got to know basically what was what, but there are times when I was shooting a stage and I know that most of my targets are between 100 and let's just say 225 yards. I would like to dial that and about split the difference at maybe like 150 and just be able to reference a number marker on the parallax adjustment. Now, parallax adjustment, it feels really nice. It feels like a high-end stereo knob. There's just the right amount of resistance. It's smooth. It doesn't bind at all. And it does have a close focusing where I can, you know, focus that parallax down to 15 meters, which for rimfire was awesome because sometimes we shoot at really close stuff up close. So as far as all the knobs go, no real complaints except for I wish the parallax knob was marked. Before we get too far into this, I do have to give a shout out to our sponsor, which is Global Ordnance. Global Ordnance is a heavy hitter in the ammunition world. They import a lot of ammo, they export a lot of ammo all over the world, and I am super excited to be partnered with them and have their support. All of the ammunition that you are seeing used in the video is from Global Ordnance. I've gotten, again, name brands that you know and love, their own imported stuff, no issues whatsoever. It runs great. I shoot thousands of rounds and no issues whatsoever, and they are so generous to offer a code to, again, save you free shipping. Again, thanks to our friends at Global Ordnance for sponsoring this video. One more quick shout out is if you're not doing anything this fall in the Midwest, you need to come to TriggrCon. You can come hang out, you can meet me, you can check out all of the premier vendors and manufacturers. Again, that's TriggrCon 2023. You can find more info, link in the description. Now, one other thing I did notice about the scope and talking to other shooters is the magnification knob. It's super smooth. It feels really good. I mean, there's no resistance, no binding. It has that nice right amount of resistance. It feels like a nice elegant bearing. So overall, the controls are really good. But what some people have said is that they're used to the magnification knob going the other way. And I don't know if it's an American versus European thing because I have a few different scopes that are all different ways. So like this Steiner, for example, is just like this one where I rotate it from behind the shooter's perspective counterclockwise to increase the magnification. A Collis is the same way. I go counterclockwise to increase the magnification. However, my Vortex is actually the opposite where I go clockwise to increase the magnification. And I can't remember like what a loophole is, but I don't have one handy. But just kind of comparing it to some other scopes. Before we get into glass quality, I want to talk about the rings. These are the Zeiss rings, and it does have a little bit of a level right here. Now, I love the fact that they're including the level because that way when you're setting up on your support or on your stage, you can make sure that the gun is level. However, the level is kind of small, and it's kind of tough to see. I found myself having to remove myself from my cheek weld to get up and see that level. So what I think I'm actually probably going to do is add some sort of a competition level on the back of my scope, and then maybe move this ring to the front on the opposite side. So on those weird stages where you do have to shoot offhand, off shoulder, then I have another level verification that I could see with that side. So I think that might work well for that. But as far as the rings go, installation was great. Torque marks everywhere, like they give you the torque specs of everything that they want you to apply for not only just the cap screws, but also the cross bolts. So installation, all that stuff with the rings, the interface, everything, no complaints whatsoever. I was very impressed with the rings and how everything just came together. Really, really like that. Now, here's the big question is how is the glass, how is the reticle? And I've used this in competition, I've used it in a class, I've used it in my own training and practice. And I have to say, I think overall the glass quality is really good. Now, they have the Zeiss T coating, which they say provides a brilliant high contrast image that you will experience above all in adverse lighting conditions and in the twilight. Now, I will say we did at the recent match kind of look side to side to side to side, and I do have experience comparing it to some of these other scopes that I have, and I found the image was very pleasant overall. Colors looked good, the resolution was good. The only thing I noticed is that at increased magnification, so about 20x or so on this particular model, I could start to see, and I don't know if this is the technical term, but I could see what I would maybe describe as a little bit of refraction with the coatings, to where at that 20 plus, the eye box or your placement of your cheek to look through the eye alignment of the exit pupil of the image was just very critical. You know, you had to really make sure you were critical. And then I noticed a little bit of almost like a little bit of red clouding, if you will, kind of just on the edges of the image. And again, that was only at 20 and 25, but just something to be aware of. And I talked to a couple other shooters who had the 6-36 version, and they said the same thing at about above 30, give or take. They could see just a little bit of that red clouding. And again, I don't know if it's like the element of the illumination or the coating or something like that that is causing just a little bit of that, but it was not distracting, but noticeable, if that makes sense. So that's the only thing I would say about the glass. Otherwise, I thought it looked really good. I was able to see targets really well in shadows and low lighted, areas of different stages. It does have red and green illumination, which is pretty cool. I didn't have a chance to really do a ton of low light shooting. So if you'd use that, I think that is very applicable for some shooters or low light matches, things like that, as we're starting to see more competitions happen. Now, as far as the reticle goes, I actually really enjoyed the reticle. It wasn't too busy, it wasn't too clouded or cluttered. Some of the Christmas tree reticles on the market that have so much stuff on the tier almost like makes it look like you're looking through a screen door, and I didn't have that. But yet it was also bold enough to where you were at lower magnifications, you could still pick up the center crosshair, which was cool. But then at higher magnifications, it was fine enough to make out your detail. What I also liked about the reticle was the holds. It just works really well for my system of holds. I like reticles that have 0.2 increments. Now, some people like 0.25 mils or 0.1 or need that fine area. Totally cool. You got to do what works for you, because reticle is a personal thing. I totally get that. But what I really liked is it has these 0.2 and 0.5 holds, and obviously it has, full mil holds too. But the gradients in between the mils are 2, 4, and then on the first couple, there's like a half area, and we have 0.6, 0.8, and then the full mil. And then as we go down, we have these, little dotted lines in between the mils again. So if you knew that you had to hold 3.5 mils, it really makes it easy for you to figure out where the half is. Or if you had to hold, like 0.1, you're just going to be above that 0.2 or a 6 o'clock hold or whatever it might be. Now, what it was also cool is that it does have 3 mils above versus a full crosshair, where some of them, fully go up and they have more measuring and stuff up there. So I kind of like having that open area, because sometimes as I'm, moving and scanning and looking for a target, I'll use that open area of the reticle. And then I can also hold under, because depending on rimfire, sometimes you do have to hold under, or if I dialed for a far target, then I know I have to hold under for a closer target, so that way I don't have to waste time dialing. Sometimes that is a good technique as well. So overall, no complaints with the reticle. I thought the reticle was really well designed, and I enjoyed using it. It's very similar to some of the other reticles on the market that I enjoy, so it wasn't a big transition or a challenge for me to move to this reticle. Now, my overall thoughts. I do think optically it's nice. I like the reticle. I like the reticle performance, tracking. Everything was just performing perfectly for me, so I had zero issues whatsoever. Now, as far as the price point value, being that we can see these street price for around $2,200, and the 6-36 is around $2,500. If I was buying it over, and by the way, I did buy this, I did receive an industry discount, if you will, but that's pretty common with a lot of products and dealer status accounts and all that, whatever. But I would probably buy the 6-36. I generally find myself using between 12 and 18 magnification range in most competitions, matches, whatever. And that would obviously be a little bit less of a workout for that 6-36, meaning that I would have a little bit bigger of an exit pupil, so my eye placement wouldn't be as critical. Whereas if I start to creep up to that 18x on this guy, or when I was zeroing or trying to get really, really fine-tuned, shooting performance, then I would increase that magnification. And that's again where I saw a little bit of that image reddish, if you will, that I talked about earlier. But overall, I think these are very nice scopes. I think we're going to start to see more and more of them on matches and at competition events, because ultimately it's a very nice scope. And I've compared it to some of the other higher end scopes out there, and I think it holds pretty well. Now, is it as nice as some of the higher end $3,000-$4,000 scopes? No, but for its price point, I think it packs a lot of punch compared to scopes that are around that $2,000 to $2,500 price point. And again, most important thing for me is the reliability and tracking, and this thing performed really well. If you guys are interested in picking one up for yourself, I will have links to our article on our website where you can go. They do help keep the lights on with the channel. We just get a small kickback from various dealers and stuff. But if you guys use those links, it does really help us out. So thanks very much for watching. If you guys have any questions about this or anything firearms related, you can send us a question to our monthly QA series. We try to go live at the end of every month. And you can just email your questions to the email address shown on the screen, which is theqa@gunsandtactics.com. Thank you guys very much for watching, and have a great day.